Welcome to the program. Our sign language interpreter is William Silla. Now, 14 money transfer service providers and 3 non-governmental organizations named by the government as possible associates of the Al-Shabaab terror group have reacted with shock and anger. The Forex Bureaus Association has also resolved to go to court to challenge the government's move to freeze accounts of the bureaus suspected of facilitating funding for terror activities. Najma Ismail has that story.
For the first time yesterday, we produced a list of entities and persons that may have facilitated terrorism acts. And the process is then they freeze the assets of persons or entities included in that list.
The gazettement of the list of 85 alleged Al-Shabaab associates has taken the affected money transfer firms and some non-governmental organizations by storm. 13 money transfer firms, among them the popular Dahabshil Money Transfer Company Limited, have been listed in the Gazette notice and their accounts frozen.
Since we didn't have a local list until yesterday, this local list has now been gazetted. The process now would be to freeze the assets of persons involved who are alleged to have been financing terrorism. And this is, in regard to the question as to whether this is specific to Garissa or more general, this is more a list for general terrorism financing.
The operators of the money transfer firms are in shock.
A total of 14 MRPs, all of which have now been suspended, except Safaricom Money Transfer Services Limited. We are not sure why.
The Kenya Forex Bureau Association says that the 13 MRPs whose licenses have been suspended by the government were given a clean bill of health by the regulator, the CBK. Now, at least 800 people might lose their jobs due to the suspension. CEO Anthony Washira says that previously the MRPs, which were known as Hawalas, were operating without any legal framework, and the associations petitioned the government to license them after a rigorous due process.
As an association, we wish to inform the public that we do not at any time support or encourage any of our members to engage in any way with terrorists or terrorist activities.
Collectively saying that, they are all doing that business, I think to me it doesn't sound that much genuine.
The Forex Bureaus Association now say they will go to court to challenge the government's move. 3 non-governmental organizations have also been hit, among them Haki Africa, Muslims for Human Rights Group Muhuri, and the Agency for Peace and Development.
Tutatumia sheria ili kukabiliana na madai haya na tuhakikishe kwamba ukweli na haki umeonekana na umejulikana.
Tujui sababu gani? Kwa sababu kila mwaka returns ambao sisi tunafanya kwa NGO Act ziko wazi.
There are also 61 individuals named in the list. Najma Ismail, KTN.
Well, now that brings us to our big question tonight, and we are asking, do you support the freezing of accounts of suspected terror associates? Do you support the freezing of accounts of the suspected terror associates? You can, of course, get in touch with us via SMS number 22155. Remember, when you send an SMS, start with a yes or no, so that we are able to compile that into a poll result. Or you can get in touch with me at KTN Kenya, at KTN Kenya News, KTN KE News, or at Wilson_Mburu, and I'll continue sampling your views as the bulletin continues. Now, let's look at some of the names that are appearing on that. There are 85 names, but we cannot show you the complete number, the 85 of them, but we'll show you some of the names that bring up some sort of curiosity. Now, the first name on that list is Mohamed Kuno Elias Gamadere. This is a very popular name in Kenya. He's a former teacher, and he has been accused of funding terror activities in the country for a while. There's a 20 million shillings bounty on his head. Now, the other one is Abdikadir Mohamed Elias Ikrima. There's particular Abdikadir Mohamed is suspected to have been killed in a drone attack last year by the USA, or rather the United States. They killed him in a drone attack in Somalia last year. So it is a very tricky situation. Whether is he still alive, is he dead, is he alive? That is something that is yet to be known with surety. Now, the other names on this list: Dahabshil Money Transfer Company Limited. This is a very popular money transfer company limited, which is mostly used by Kenyan Somalis or even Somalis who are living in the country. The UAE Exchange Money Remittance Limited, Kendi Money Transfer Limited. I'm pretty sure if you live in Nairobi, you have seen their billboards all over town. It is one money transfer service that is coming up pretty quickly. Continental Money Transfer Limited, Legend International Consulting Limited. These are all names that are in that particular list, which have their accounts have been frozen. The other one, let's move on to the next slide. The other one is Amal Express Money Transfer Limited, Juba Express Money Transfer Limited, Iftin Express Money Transfer Limited, Car Express Money Transfer Limited, Amana Express Transfer Limited. All these, of course, are services, or rather money transfer services, whose accounts have been frozen because they have been associated with terror activities. Let's move on. Bakal Express Money Transfer Limited, Tawakal, Flex, Hodan Global Money Remittance and Exchange Limited. Some other bus companies here that have their accounts have been frozen: eCoach Company Limited, City to City Services Limited. This City to City Services Limited, it brings up memories of Ntulele bus accident. If you remember that horrible accident in Ntulele, and their services had actually been halted, has now been frozen. The accounts have been frozen. They cannot conduct any more services in the country. Sabria Bus Services, there's another company there called G-Coach. Here's another interesting name, Eric Oganda. His name just appears on this list. What he has been accused of, we do not know, but then again, in specific that is, but his accounts have also been frozen. Haki Africa and Muslims for Human Rights Group, this is Muhuri, another non-governmental organization that operates in the country, has had its accounts frozen. Again, those are just some of those organizations and money transfer services, forex bureaus, whose accounts have been frozen because they are associated with funding terror in the country. Remember, on our BQ, we are asking, do you support the government's decision to freeze the accounts of these particular groups that have been named on this list? Let's move on. Now, as a Kenyan, you probably have closed your eyes for a moment and imagined how the attack in Garissa University unfolded. The endless shooting, the terrified students in hostels, and the mass killings. Well, for 21-year-old Maureen Mayengo, this is far from an imagination. For 13 hours, she locked herself up in a closet, witnessing the murder of her 4 roommates, among them her long-term best friend. Anxious and unable to reach her, Maureen's brother, and had spoken with KTN's Sharon Momanyi on the day of the attack. Today, though, happy to be reunited with her family, Maureen hopes that all the survivors will get adequate counseling. She opens up to Sharon.
Tulikuwa tunasoma, and in that class we were around 5 students. Sasa tukasikia sauti mbili, as in kaza gunshot hivi. Tukatoka nje. Venye tulitoka nje, hatukuwa tumejua ni gunshot. Tulikuwa tunafikiria labda ni stima, juu some classes hakukuwa na stima. Immediately tukaona watu wawili wametokea, wamevaa askari, wako na bunduki. Wakatushoot immediately, wakatushoot direct at once. Mmoja wetu akaanguka pale. Sisi tukatoroka. Kutoroka pale karibu kulikuwa na watu wa CU, kulikuwa na class, watu wa CU walikuwa naomba. Then the two wakaingia pale, wakawashutu wote. Mimi nikakimbia hadi room. Student wakatoka nje. Sasa hizo most walikuwa nje bado wanataka kuona nini inaendelea. Immediately wale watu wawili wakakuja side ya room, side ya ma hostels huko Elgon. Sasa kama second years wakashutu wote. Mtu yote mwenye alikuwa nje, mwenye alikuwa na hover nje, maybe unataka kuangalia what's going on, unashutiwa immediately. Mimi kaenda immediately, nikaingia kwa wardrobe, nikanyamaza huko. Wote wenye walikuwa wanajaribu kuchungulia, maybe unataka kutoroka uende room, uende maybe kujificha kwa loose side, unashutiwa. They were using 2 languages, the Kiswahili na Kisomali. Kusema sisi tumekuja hapa kuwaua, hatuogopi kifo, lengo letu hapa kabisa ni kuwaua. Wakaanza kusema wasichana wote nyinyi tokeni nje, hatuna shida na nyinyi. Hiyo time most girls nikasikia wakiteremka wakashuka chini, wakaenda underground. Kufika pale wakapigishwa magoti, wakaambiwa piga magoti wainue juu. Lakini vile nilitaka kushuka hivi, kuna wasichana watatu wa Somali walitoka room, walikuwa bado pia hawajashuka. Wenye walitokeleza hivi, wale wakamwambia, nyinyi dada zetu, karibuni sana. Nyie tuwezi waua. Nendeni msikitini, msiende pale, maana mkienda pale mtauawa. Sasa walikuwa wanapoingia kwa wale wenye walikuwa chini. Hapo wenye nilisikia wale wameambiwa wasiende pale kwenye walikuwa chini. Then nikajua unfortunately wale wanaenda kuuawa. Sasa sikushuka pale, nirudi pale kwa group yangu, nikanyamaza kimya. Kidogo ile wakamwambia wainue mikono juu, wakaanza kuambia huku ni kwetu. Kama rais wenyu hatatoa KDF huku, tutawamaliza nyinyi wote. Tumekuja hapa, tunasikia mko wengi sana, tunataka tuwamalize nyinyi wote.
I called my sister immediately. The first phone call she didn't pick. And then I tried to understand maybe they may be running here and there. But then I decided not to stop, call and again.
Ile wakati alinipigia ilikuwa around bado 6 kukelekea saa 1. Hasa nilikuwa bado sijaweka phone silent, nikasikia simu imelia. Mara kwanza nikakata. Bado akaendelea tu kucall. Nilikuwa ndani ya wardrobe, nikashika polepole, wale bado walikuwa wanaendelea kushoot ground floor. Sasa nikamwambia, hata hakusikia penye nilisema, nilimwambia huku watu wanauawa. Nikakata simu, nikaika silent mode, nikanyamaza tu naye. Sasa from there sikuwa na pick any call, any text, hata sikuwa naangalia. Mimi nikanyamaza, nikaomba Mungu wangu kidogo tu. Wakasema wacha tuongee na mkubwa wetu, akisema tuwasamee tutawasamea, na akisema tuache, akisema tuwaue basi tutawaua. Kidogo wakanyamaza kidogo, hapa sijui walikuwa wanafanya nini. Then kidogo tu wakashutio wote, wale usina wote wakashutio. Mimi nilikaa pale kwa wardrobe hadi kitu saa moja hivi na dakika 10 ndio nilitoka. Saa 1 jioni. Kwanza kitu yenye ilinisaidia sana venye nilikuwa huko juu ni rosary. Juu mimi ni Mkatoliki. Sasa mara mingi mimi nilikuwa nashinda tu nikiomba hii rosary. Nilikuwa naomba na maliza tena naanza tena. Naambia tu Mungu, hata sio serikali inaweza nifunika, sio serikali inaweza ni protect. It's only God. Hata saizi nikinyamaza tu chini nitulie, naona tu wale wenye walikuwa wamekufia room yangu wawili, roommates wangu. Alafu venye nilitoka nje, ground floor wote watu wenye walikuwa wameuawa. Hizo tu picha ndio kila saa tu nikinyamaza zinanikujia tu kila wakati. Alafu tu venye masikio ile ishinda ikisikiza hizo gunshot the whole day. Hata mtu akifanya tu kelele kidogo hivi nasikia tu masikio inasikiza tu hizo sauti bado tu zinagonga tu kwa masikio kila wakati. Kuna hata mmoja alipiga simu, huyo Al-Shabaab alikuwa tu kwa room yangu nje tu hivi. Ilikuwa around saa 9 akipiga simu akisema so far tumeua 130, tunaweza estimate wanaweza kuwa 130, but we are still targeting more. Na hii ilikuwa kitu saa 9 hiyo, na bado kulikuwa walikuwa wanaendelea bado kushoot watu. Mimi naweza sema there are more than that number. Kitu inanisaidia sana ni guidance and counseling from our sisters wa kanisa and priests na maombi.
The name of the Father, the Son, and the Holy Spirit. Amen.
Venye tu nilifika hivi, kesho yake bradangu akanileta kanisani. Most of the time niko nao, wanajaribu kuniguide, wanajaribu kunicounsel.
We are told that all things happen for our good, for we who love God. But at the moment you may ask yourself, what good?
Unajua kuna wenye walipelekwa tu home, hata wajaifika church, hata waambia tu Mungu, I'm grateful, we appreciate tu Mungu. Sasa mimi kitu yenye ningesema kwanza, before hiyo mambo na kwenda shule, waandae tu guidance and counseling at least for even 3 months. But wakisema hata tukai for 1 month and then tuende shule, it won't work.
I would wish that I was doing an interview with her, telling the story of how she survived or how she is seeing the same thing, being a person who was in there, but then now she's out. So I wish she was here herself, giving the story and me listening to it.
Nilikuwa na furaha, lakini bado nikikaa chini nikifikiria wale marafiki zangu nimepoteza, wale roommates wangu nilikuwa nimeozoea kila saa, bado hiyo furaha si ile furaha ya kawaida. Ni furaha ndio Mungu aliniokoa, lakini nikikaa chini nifikirie bado si furaha. Bado niko na huzuni mingi sana moyoni mwangu. Huzuni sana.
She's just 21, something that she will have to live with for the rest of her life. It's a very sad tale, that one. Let's move on. The final journey for some of the students who died in the Garissa University College has begun. Families began collecting bodies of their loved ones from the Chiromo funeral parlor. However, some families that were hoping to collect the bodies today did not manage to do so due to logistical delays. And as Rita Tinina now reports, some families will not be taking those bodies home just yet.
Cheerful and friendly, a girl who liked to spend time with children. Jojo was her nickname. Angela Nyokabi was a second-year student at the Garissa University College, studying business management. Shortly before 3 p.m., she began her final journey. The 21-year-old's body was the first of the 144 bodies at the Chiromo funeral parlor to be released to the family. Angela's body was transferred to the Kenyatta University mortuary. She will be laid to rest on Friday in Gatundu South. Some families have been waiting for 2 days to get the bodies of their loved ones after identifying the bodies, which were scientifically ascertained through fingerprints. Mildred Yondo's family identified her body on Sunday, and a post-mortem exam was conducted on Monday. The family has been waiting to take her body home to Mumias for burial. Mildred's family will have to wait another day before she can embark on a final journey home.
They're saying the file is not around, it's not available, so they have to make calls to wherever the file is for the file to be brought for the first years.
Some families are citing delays in releasing the bodies that have been identified, but the government says it is not taking any chances on the identities of the students who lost their lives.
Because you saw 2 or 3 families claiming the same body. So if you are to release some bodies and then they are the wrong ones, actually you have committed more distress to both families.
But even as the release of the bodies began, some families will not take the bodies of their loved ones home just yet. Judith Chepkemboy's family plans to transport her body home to Vihiga on Friday.
Sisi tunachukua mwili Friday alafu alale nyumbani tumusike Saturday.
For other families, the collection of bodies will be dictated by culture.
Kimila yetu sisi ufanyanga hiyo kazi ya kuchika mwili Jumamosi.
Musao is planning to collect his son Samuel Musao's body on Saturday morning ahead of his burial on the same day. 14 bodies are yet to be identified, and families are banking on the fingerprinting exercise to help establish the identities of their loved ones. First Lady Margaret Kenyatta and John Cardinal Njue were among those who visited families at the Chiromo funeral parlor. Rita Tinina, KTN.
Now, students of the Garissa University College will be admitted at Moi University main campus in Eldoret to continue with their studies. The announcement was made after a special Senate meeting this morning. The university says these students will be given time to heal and later be received at the university on May the 20th to proceed with their courses at the main campus. Masi Kandie has the details.
Joseph Kingori helps out with the house chores at his home in Nyeri. His education cut abruptly after the Garissa University College terror attack last week. He knows he's lucky to be alive. He will be among the 646 students that will be moved to the Moi University main campus in Eldoret in May.
Kongwe, unajua Eldoret ni pahali ambapo hata sijawahi enda, ni pahali ambapo tu mimi nasikia tu, lakini nimetayarisha fikra zangu kwa sababu najua lazima kuna jukumu lazima nitimize kwa maisha, lazima nitayarishe fikra zangu venye itakuwa.
Even as 90 others continue to recover in hospital and many more trying to recover from the trauma, one of the main concern was what's next for the students and staff at the besieged university. Parents and students especially can now breathe easy as the question of what next academically has been answered officially today by the university, saying it has capacity to accommodate the over 600 students to be transferred here at the main campus. The university's Vice Chancellor, Professor Richard Mibe, says he is committed to making it work.
So we will arrange for them to complete the academic semester, and after they complete the academic semester, then we can now integrate them with our own Moi University students.
Moi University main campus in Eldoret currently hosts over 12,000 students. The students from Garissa in their first, second and third year will now relocate to what some teaching staff at the university term as a safer environment.
When you're in Garissa, you are always looking for the day you move out of Garissa to some other part which is not Garissa. Okay? So at least that being in Eldoret or in Moi University will give us a sense of security.
Security within the campus has been beefed up, and though difficult to forget, the university located in the outskirts of Eldoret will be their new home.
So sometimes if when you think of a class environment and you see your students seated just right in front of you and you're giving a lecture, and when you try to imagine again meeting the students and some of them are missing, it can cause trauma. Okay, so some teachers, members of staff, they need counseling.
So we want to assure them that we are going to embrace them with all love, all care and all unity, so that together we can spearhead the course of our learning.
The students had just 6 weeks before the end of semester, the main university being the platform on which they get to continue their education and better their lives. Marcy Kandia, KTN, Eldoret, Uasin Gishu County.
Let's go to that executive order by the president, and now the Attorney General has fiercely defended President Uhuru Kenyatta's directive on police recruits, which has been criticized as a defiance of the courts. AG Githumoigai maintains the president did what he had to do. But as Linda Ogutu reports, the Commission for the Implementation of the Constitution says the president's directive is a violation of the law. Linda also spoke to one of Kenya's top legal minds, who insists that the president had several useful options and did not have to defy the courts.
The outcome of that recruitment is hereby quashed. I will also issue an order prohibiting the Commission from issuing appointment or any other letters to persons recruited on that day on the basis of that exercise.
I also further direct the Inspector General of Police to take urgent steps and ensure that the 10,000 recruits whose enrollment is pending promptly report for training at the Kenya Police College in Kiganjo. I take full responsibility for this directive.
And with that, the battle of separation of powers between the executive and the judiciary unfolded. The president, under immense pressure to protect the people of his nation, and a judicial ruling that, according to him, has seen Kenyans continue to suffer from terror attacks that would be prevented if only there were enough police officers. The Commander-in-Chief may have meant well. Legal minds, however, say his directive is against the law. He may be the head of state, but he is not above the law.
He assumes power pursuant to the procedure set by law. So how can he be above that very mechanism that sets out the mechanisms through which he assumes power?
The president's directive goes against the rule of law, which in its most basic form is a principle that no one is above the law. The most important application of the rule of law is the principle that governmental authority is legitimately exercised only in accordance with written, publicly disclosed laws adopted and enforced in accordance with established procedural steps that are referred to as due process. The principle is intended to be a safeguard against arbitrary governance.
Part of the indicators of the rule of law in a society is that courts function independently without fear of reprimand, and number two, court orders are complied with. Now, in a society like ours, where court orders are not complied with, we suffer what we call a democracy deficit. We are doing very badly.
Legal minds say there needs to be congruence between official action and the law. When powerful public officials like the president overrule court decisions, then the long-term effect may render court decisions and indeed the judiciary irrelevant. The consequences could be dire.
You therefore don't know how far he can go with this power. That's very dangerous. Today, the Inspector General of Police is perhaps preparing to act in accordance with a presidential directive contrary to a court order. That means a precedent has been set. Tomorrow he can take another directive from the president. Think about yourselves at Media House, for example. What would prevent the Inspector General of raiding you and saying, I was ordered by the president? Now you have no limits. You now can act as directed by the president, which means arbitrary, which means whimsically. And that, I must concede, is extremely dangerous for any democracy known in the world of democracies.
Attorney General Githu Muigai has faulted the court for nullifying the entire police recruitment process, saying nullification should have been done in areas where irregularities have been reported. Legal minds disagree.
The Attorney General knows better than I do that the proper remedy is going back to the same court for review of that order, or going to a higher court on appeal, which I understand is what has happened. Now, when you are on appeal, you must submit to the court process. You can't at first go to the court process to plead with the court to give you an order one or the other. Then outside court, you act as if you are dictating to court to act one way. That way, I mean, the Attorney General is eating at the very roots of the rule of law and constitutionalism as I know it. We are now in another year where the President is perfectly in order to order a new police recruitment, even as we sort out the issues surrounding that old police recruitment. And therefore, if the President went to Parliament with a supplementary budget to seek that he gets a budget to conduct a fresh police recruitment, I don't think that would have been impossible. Number two, there is a process of certification of urgency of matters. You and I know that when media houses were unhappy with the conduct of the Communication Authority of Kenya, they got a matter to move from the High Court to the Court of Appeal to the Supreme Court in less than 1 year. And that therefore means that once a court is appropriately moved to certify a particular matter urgent, the court can do so. The President, using his legal advisors, legal representatives of the government, would have still persuaded the President of the Court of Appeal to certify the pending appeal as urgent and gave it a priority date for hearing. All these are lawful options that were available to the President, which the President never even attempted to pursue.
So help me God.
And so, legally, it is hoped that the pressure to win the war on terror will not push the head of state to undermine the decision of one of the three arms of government that is recognized by the very constitution he swore to protect. Linda Ogutu, KTN.
Let's take a reminder of our big question tonight before we take a very short break. And it is about the 85 accounts that have been frozen by the government for being associated or being suspected to be associated with terrorism activities in the country. Do you support the freezing of those accounts of suspected terror associates? You can get in touch with us. 22155 is the SMS line. At Wilson_Mburu is my Twitter handle. Let me take just two responses here. Imali here says, is there a legitimate reason? Is the proof beyond all reasonable doubt? Very valid question there. Martin Muchuma says, yes, but not to just freeze, but arrest and detain anyone associated with them. George Kasika here says, it will not make a difference. We will find other ways. Let us just appreciate it as a very small step taken in the right direction. Thank you very much for your responses. We'll take a very short break now, but don't you go away. Keep those SMSs, keep those tweets coming. We'll continue to sample them as the bulletin moves along. Take a short break. We'll be back right after this. Welcome back. You're watching KTN Prime. Thank you very much for keeping it KTN. Now, the reason you see the pictures of the President and the Deputy President on our Super Bowl tonight is because tomorrow is Thursday, the 9th of April. And if you remember, 2 years ago, 9th of April, these two gentlemen were sworn in to take over the reins of government. And we are looking at what progress we have made 2 years on. And tonight, since we have been talking about security all week due to the Garissa attack, we're talking about security. Now, in the Jubilee Manifesto, when they made the manifesto in 2013, they identified the challenge. One of the challenges that they identified is this. Our security forces I have taken this as an excerpt from the manifesto, our security forces have done well in tackling the threat of terrorism, but are under-equipped. They need better resources and skills to keep Kenyans safe from the terrorists. The statement continues that the police are currently underfunded and overstretched, and there are far too few police officers, most of whom live in deplorable conditions. This was one of the challenges that the Jubilee coalition then identified as a challenge, and how to solve it was in the following ways: to equip and modernize the security forces, to shake up the NIS, this is the National Intelligence Service, and invest in anti-terrorism unit. And they also promised to pass a new Prevention of Terrorism Act. These are just some of the measures that the Jubilee administration promised to. Some of the things that the Jubilee administration, or rather the coalition at that time, promised to do if they got into power: improve police pay and conditions. Conditions of service. This has been a serious challenge for them to deal with. Recruit 15,000 police officers per annum. We have just read a story of the push and pull between the president and the courts. Create a new border security force. Our borderlines are a bit porous, and this was one of the ways of ensuring that Kenya is safe. Now, let us look at what has been happening in the 2 years that this government has been in place. These are just some of the major attacks, terrorist attacks, that have taken place in the 2 years that President Uhuru and his deputy Ruto have been in power. Westgate, 67 people dead. Mpeketoni, 91 people dead. Kapedo, 19 police officers killed. Mandera bus, the Mandera bus attack, 36 people were killed. Mandera, just a few weeks after the Mandera bus attack, another 28 people were shot dead in a quarry. And Garissa, this is the most recent, 147 students, totaling to 388 people who have been killed in major. I repeat, these are just some of the major attacks. There have been, again, some other attacks here and there. We can remember 15 people were killed in Likoni, among others. These are just some of the major challenges that the Jubilee administration is facing. 2 years on, what needs to be done? What is being done at this point? So these are some of the things that, are going to be in the scorecard of the Jubilee government as we celebrate 2 years of their being in power. Let's take another short break. Abi Agina will be back with the day's business.
Well, a very good evening and welcome to KTN Business. I'm Abi Agina. Last week, the Public Service Commission re-advertised the position of Deputy Governor of the Central Bank after failing to get what it terms as a suitable candidate out of the 42 candidates who initially applied for the job. In the re-advertisement for the position, the PSC further locked out state officials and lowered the qualifications required for the Deputy Governor. In the second of the four-part series looking at the succession of Njogona Ndongo at the CBK, we look at the false start that was the recruitment of the Deputy CBK and why questions are being raised over the recruitment process.
On March 11th, an advert went out calling for applications for the roles of chairman, governor and deputy governor of the central bank. The applications came rolling in, 8 for the chairman, 22 for the governor and 42 for the deputy governor's positions. Among those who threw their hearts into the contest for the deputy governorship includes Rose Ndetho, the director of strategic management at CBK, Dr. Daniel Amanja and Moses Kiptui from the Kenya School of Monetary Studies, Mark Lesit, the director of banking services and risk management at CBK, and Gerald Nyaoma, the director of financial markets at CBK. However, while the Public Service Commission shortlisted candidates for both the chairman and governor positions, it did not shortlist anyone for the job of deputy governor. Interestingly, the commission said the position did not attract adequate applicants and would instead be re-advertised.
The problem with the central bank position of deputy is that it has never been correctly managed for very many years.
But what went wrong with this particular recruitment? The problem could have emanated from the terms of reference offered for the role. In the re-advertisement, the PSC said no one would be appointed deputy governor if they are a salaried employee of any public entity or are a director, officer, employee, partner or shareholder of any bank or financial institution, something that analysts say automatically locks out some of the most qualified candidates.
Our position is open and you're not allowing new people to actually apply for positions for which they are qualified, then it raises eyebrows by saying, okay, so what's happening? Why is the deck being cleared in such a ruthless way?
Even more interestingly, while the initial advertisement called for candidates to have a minimum education of a master's degree, the commission opted to downgrade the qualifications to bachelor's level, seemingly to attract more applicants. But experts are questioning this move, given that the person appointed to this role would have a hand in the formulation of the country's monetary policy.
So giving the impression that certain candidates will be favored because the job requirements are actually being stepped down, either to favor a specific candidate or to lock out someone else altogether. So that's not a good, it's not a good show.
The analysts are now demanding answers from the National Treasury and the board of the central bank, saying the route chosen to pick the deputy governor was flawed and faulting them for failing to manage the succession at the institution charged with overseeing Kenya's currency, money supply, interest rates, and regulating the entire banking sector.
Once people begin to look at it, whether politically or with a different eye, then you begin to say that, hey, this is not a properly done recruitment job. It even affects not only the confidence, but it affects the reputations of those who've applied, because people think that for some reason or another, they manipulated the system.
Because if you remember Otich, he did mention privately that we should not worry. This is not a process to worry us, to be done correctly. So I think the language of the advert, if we wanted to get the answer, we should go to the National Treasury. In this case, the CS himself.
Adley Chongole, KTN Business.
Well, quite an intense race there by the applicants, and actually the applications will be closing tomorrow, so you can send your CV and you just need a degree and a background in finance, economics or law. Moving on, chewing gum maker Wrigley is investing 6 billion shillings in a new plant to serve Eastern Southern African markets. With the plant investment, Wrigley hopes to double its exports into the African market, using Kenya as its base of operations. Wrigley currently enjoys a lion's share of the chewing gum market, with its various brands such as Orbit, PK and Big G, among others. Speaking during the groundbreaking ceremony in Mavoko, Wrigley's global president, Martin Radvan, indicated that the firm was keen on meeting the growing demand in the region. Kenya currently hosts Wrigley's only manufacturing plant in Africa. The new factory, to be built on a 20-acre piece of land in Machakos County, is expected to go into production in the first quarter of 2017. The new plant will replace the existing plant at Nairobi's industrial area, which lacks capacity to meet the growing demand. The investment by Wrigley's is poised to see over 300 entrepreneurs benefit from supplies in the farm's supply chain.
We're building a new city in Machakos, and there we'll have many more factories coming in and other companies, and want to partner and continue partnering with Wrigley's in the work that you're doing to enable this to go on.
So as we break ground today on this new world-class factory, we also demonstrate our long-term commitment to driving that sustainable growth here in East Africa, as well as in South Africa and our newly launched business in West Africa. Kenya is poised to leap even further in terms of socio-economic growth. We are proud.
We are building partnerships. We know that you are the creators of jobs in this country. Ours is to make sure that you succeed and you are able to do that much more freely and much easier than you have been able to do in the past.
Well, some good news there for people seeking jobs in Machakos County as well as Nairobi. Getting quality office space in urban Kenya has been a preserve for companies that have the financial muscle to foot the bill, leaving small businesses to operate briefcase offices. On this week's episode of The Adventurer, KTN's Charles Gitonga speaks to Hannah Clifford of Nairobi Garage, whose business is making up to 5.5 million shillings in annual profit out of leasing office space to startups at below market price rates.
Recent survey by GSMA found out that about 70% of startups in Kenya are not earning enough to meet for the most pressing needs, such as an office. Today we visit the Nairobi Garage, who have found a niche in making sure that small businesses can meet such a need at the lowest cost possible.
My name is Hannah Clifford, and I'm the General Manager at Nairobi Garage. Nairobi Garage is basically a co-working space for young companies or for companies that maybe want to work in a different kind of style of working. We basically provide desk space within our office. Within this large space, we basically allow people to come and sit and use the facilities and basically run their operations from this space. I think a space like this really helps because, not only do you don't have to put down a huge deposit or invest in furniture or invest in, a lot of equipment. Everything's here set up already. So you can just come in, there's tea and coffee provided, storage, everything is provided for you. You just bring your laptop and then you're good to go. So we have around 30 companies that are here at the moment, and they range from companies that are basically sole trader or a freelancer up to larger teams of 10 to 15 people. So there's around 100 people in here at the moment. We charge 15,000 shillings plus VAT per month. And that gives you 24 hours access to the space. You get your own desk space. You get access to the meeting rooms, tea and coffee, storage, and of course internet. And I think that's a really good deal. I mean, especially if you're one person, you're not really going to be able to find an office that's kitted out for 15,000. And even when you start to get larger numbers, I mean, of course, the economics mean that once you get above sort of 10 people, you're probably now starting to get to the cost. Maybe it makes more sense to have your own office. The fact that we're charging means that you don't really find the very, very early stage startups here. They tend to still not be at a stage where they can, even afford to have office space. They have, they have things that they would rather spend their money on when they're starting up. So I would say most of the companies here are plus a year plus of age. It costs around 1.5 million a month to run this place. So we cover our expenses, and then at the end of the day we maybe have $5,000 profit. We've learned a lot about keeping things as simple as possible, keeping operations as lean as possible, and really focusing on the bottom line, what are things that people want, what is it worth investing in that actually people are willing to pay for.
Securing affordable and efficient office space is definitely one of the initial steps towards transforming that idea into a business. And as Scott Belsky said, it's not about the ideas, it's about making the ideas work. Charles Gitonga for The Adventurer.
Wow, interesting there report by Charles. Moving on, the demand for high wages has rocked the building of the standard gauge railway, introducing yet another hurdle for the 327 billion shilling project. Workers at the Syokimau site this morning were on a go-slow for what they termed as unequal working conditions. On average, workers on the SGR project earn 52 shillings an hour, but are now demanding at least 80 shillings per hour if they are to continue working. Workers on the project at the Mtitandi site first complained of poor pay in February this year, but have since resumed work. Well, we do hope that stalemate will be resolved. And now let's take a look at the financial report, as I also bid you a good night and wish you all the best. Let's meet tomorrow, same time, same place.
An action-packed and sport day. It has been a very good evening, and welcome to today's edition of KTN Sports. My name is Moses Wahisi. It is finally official that Gabon will host the 31st edition of the Africa Cup of Nations in the year 2017. The country was voted during a session of the Africa Cup of Nations or Congress, which was attended by the current FIFA President Sepp Blatter, and his two competitors who will be vying for the top seat. Kenya has been pulled in Group E alongside the 2012 champions Zambia, Congo, and also Guinea-Bissau.
After successfully co-hosting the Africa Cup of Nations together with Equatorial Guinea in 2013, where Nigeria clinched the top honors, Gabon has once again won the rights to solely stage the 31st edition of Africa's biggest football bonanza in 2017. Gabon beat four-time African champions Ghana and one-time winner Algeria to the honors of staging the tournament. In addition, the 2017 tournament will see for the first time in history of the competition a host nation taking part in the qualifiers. However, the matches concerned will not count for any points in the group and will instead be classified as friendlies. 52 teams were divided into 13 groups of 4 teams each, and Kenya has been placed in Group E alongside 2012 champion Zambia, 2015 AFCON semi-finalists Congo and Guinea-Bissau. The last time Kenya qualified for the finals was in 2004 in Tunisia, where Harambee Stars was eliminated in the group stages. Since then, Kenya has failed to qualify for the Continental Masterpiece. In the last AFCON qualifiers, Kenya failed to qualify after a poor campaign in which the Stars were eliminated by Lesotho. With the 2017 AFCON qualifier set for June, Kenya will have a mountain to climb in Group E if our recent results are anything to go by. Robinson Okenye, KTN Sports.
Let's hope the Homeboys are going to have a positive outing in that time. Now, the stage is finally set for this year's edition of the Barclays Bank Open Golf Tournament, an event that tees off at the Karen Golf Club tomorrow. 88 professional golfers warmed up for that tournament during today's Barclays Bank-sponsored Pro-Am. And trust you me, a lot is expected from the locals who have failed to sparkle in the recent editions of the tournament. Today's Barclays-sponsored Pro-Am at Karen Golf Club had 88 professionals and 100 amateurs who took to the course to fine-tune their swings and learn better the geography of the course ahead of the proper tee-off on Thursday. A total of 35 golfers are expected to represent the country in this year's edition. The Kenyan lineup led by Dismas Indiza, Greg Snow among others will be the center of attention aside from the crop of talented individuals from the European countries, something that will surely make the time more competitive and interesting to the spectators.
I think it's going to be a really good competition. I mean, the guys are playing better and better every year, you know, and the competition is tougher and tougher.
Yeah, obviously, yeah, it's a good field out here, so everyone can go low. So it's a strong field. So yeah, the score is going to be pretty good.
Kenya hopeful Greg Snow, who finished 10th in last year's edition, will tee off at 12 minutes past midday. Indiza, known for his hard shots on the fairway, will have his first swing at 12:40 p.m. The home favourites with the mastery of the course are expected to shine, but it will not be a walk in the park.
Well, I think so. I mean, obviously, when you know the course and you know the greens very well and you know where you have to put it better. I mean, obviously, it's going to come to the one who play the best, you know, and sometimes helps you being local. Sometimes it gives you a little more pressure.
So the African Jack Ross won the 2014 edition of the Barclays Kenya Opens, and this year's Kenyan will be playing with determination to better their swings and improve their country's standings. To matters really. The Kenyan sprinters are currently focused on polishing their techniques, and that's ahead of the national trials of the World Relays, which is going to be held on Friday. A group of athletes are in a residential training camp to fine-tune their form before the Friday's showdown, where tickets to the World Relays in Bahamas will be up for grabs, but that's only for those who will emerge atop in the respective disciplines. The coaches in charge of the provisional teams are mostly working on the sprinting techniques. Kenya hopes to send a strong team to the second edition of the World Relays. But unlike last year, most elite athletes have given that event a cold shoulder.
I think we are going to select a very good team because these are athletes who, when we call them to come for relay, they turn up. So we hope to use the same athletes. I'll see them train, they are good. Yeah.
Well, let's remind you of our big question tonight before we call it a day. We did ask you whether you support the government's decision to freeze the accounts of suspected terror associates in the country. Let's have a look at the result of the poll that we just took. 84% of you do support the government's freezing of accounts, while 16% of you do not agree with the government. Let me take 2 SMSs here. Yes. This is Njeri writing us from Italy. She says, yes, however, let the government be taking prevention seriously before being overtaken by events. Prevention is better than cure. Let me take another one here. Doesn't have a name on it. But it says the government should not stop at that. Properties like vehicles, buildings, land and businesses should be confiscated and transferred to the public or charitable organizations. When pirates' activities was at the peak in Somali high seas, property rates hit the roof in Nairobi. What did this mean? The terrorists were investing. Those are your views. Thank you very much for joining us on KTN Prime. Thank you very much for sending in your SMSs and your tweets. We shall see you tomorrow. My name is Wilson Buru. Our sign language interpreter was William Sila. Enjoy the rest of your viewing. Have yourself a good night. See you tomorrow.